Katherine Smith, Dedrick, representing the partners, a partner in Risk Worldwide. She's got 5 minutes.
Good afternoon. I'm an attorney in the United States, obviously not practicing law here. We're over here to consult with policyholders and help guide and prepare claim packages and give whatever advice we can to help move the situation forward. I think it's important to know about my background that for 20 years I was an attorney for the insurance companies. So I worked as a national counsel for them. I worked through all their hazardous waste, asbestos, major claims. One of the things I did was to teach claim practices to the insurance company representatives and the proper way to do certain things. So when we talk about whether this is an urban myth, and you know, with all due respect, we love being in your country, we're here to help. I know we're not Kiwis, but we went through a bell curve situation like what you're going through now, just ahead of you, and we had to learn it the hard way. So here are some of the things that when I taught claim handling practices were adopted and done. That's something that changed in about the 1990s, and it's changed here too. So one of the first things is, if as an insurance company you owe, you pay. Simple concept, but it is not happening here. If the insurer, the claim rep, knows that they owe even a minimal sum, they need to get it out of their bank and into your bank. That's part of the good faith and fair dealing which New Zealand has also as part of its contractual nature. That is not happening here. The second thing is, it is up to the insurer to identify what they owe. In other words, they need to investigate, look for the policyholder, get in. I will tell you an example since I've been over here, and that's not happening. I've sat at a number of meetings where I've been told point blank by the insurance company, we only look around the room, and if we see a crack, we pay for what we see, nothing else. And we presented them with reports from engineers, and I'm sure you've all had the same experience, that show behind the crack damage, and they refuse to look at those reports. So that's something that shouldn't be happening. Third thing we taught, do not ask for anything in return when you, as an insurance company, are putting forth the payment under the policy. All you're doing is doing what you owe as an insurer. In other words, and that's not happening here either, unfortunately, we're seeing policyholders being forced to give releases in return for payment. And why that is a problem is because property policies owe for damage. What I used to tell our claim reps is, this is not a game. This is a good faith and fair dealing contractual relationship. The insurer owes for damage. So if the policyholder only knows of certain damage at one point, you pay for that damage. If later on they find additional damage, you pay for that damage. That's what the policyholders paid for all those years of paying premium, right? We all understand that concept. So to force a policyholder, which we see being done here often, to sign a release before they are aware of the full extent of the damage is problematic. And I'm going to make one more point because I see I'm going to be asked to step aside. If you know of additional insurance under the policy as a claim representative for the insurance company, you are to provide that knowledge to the policyholder. That's what you're there for, to help them. Thank you.
Thank you, Katherine. And last but not least, Emily Walton, a partner in Wynn Williams.
Hello, everybody. I had actually prepared a nice little blurb about my views on what are going on in the insurance industry, but having heard now from Professor Feynman and from Sarah Miles, I feel quite motivated to just actually respond to them along the way as well. So I'm also historically pre-earthquake acted for insurers rather than the insureds. However, since the earthquakes, I now seem to deal most often with commercial claims where I'm acting for the insureds. And I would have to say that in my experience, I don't think there is a mandate amongst insurers to delay, deny and defend. As a legal matter, there is an obligation for claims to be responded to within a reasonable time, and the insurers are saying, you know, given the ongoing seismic activity, etc., this is not we're not yet at an unreasonable time frame for responding. People have their own views on that, but what I do know is when you take control of your own claim, get your own evidence, get your own advice, you escalate things significantly and you are far more likely to get a result, be it commercial or residential. So it is the fourth biggest insurance event, as was mentioned by Roger Sutton, globally ever. I agree with Professor Feynman that there are delays, and I also agree with him that a result of the delays is that people are tired and people are giving in because they are exhausted. That's why one of the big things that I point out is you just have to have tenacity. Don't give up, and don't listen necessarily to what the loss adjusters and the insurers say, because I also agree with Professor Feynman that a number of people don't get the right advice, do listen to the loss adjusters and the insurers, and can end up prejudicing their own position as a result of that. And that has ramifications for all of us here, because if people, particularly in a commercial context, settle their claims for an indemnity value settlement when they have a replacement policy, then they are actually taking money out of the rebuild, because that is reinsurance money that will not come into our city. I think it's really important for people to, number one, get their own evidence, engineering, quantity surveying, building evidence. The insurers investigate the claims. They get their own evidence. You can't force them or encourage them to change their minds by saying you disagree. You have to prove it. They're going to be audited by their reinsurers. They have to have a piece of paper that they can show their reinsurers to say, this is why I paid this claim in this way. So you need to get that information. The other point that seems to be slightly perhaps overlooked a little in some of the presentations that we've had thus far, particularly by Professor Feynman and Sarah Miles, is we have a contract here with words in it that define the nature of the promise and how the promise is delivered. To say that they're just not paying out on the promises is overlooking the fact that in most insurance policies, both commercial and residential, the obligation is only to indemnify, pay market value, unless you're going to rebuild. So you need to get evidence to show you're going to rebuild, or they won't pay. It's not rocket science. You can actually take control of the whole process yourselves if you do the right thing, and that is getting good professional advice from a building perspective and getting some good technical legal advice about what your contract says. They all say different things. There is detail in there that can be argued one way or the other, and often can be argued to the insured's advantage. And if you've got a commercial policy, chances are your costs of getting that legal advice and that professional advice will be covered. So it's a no-brainer that you should go out and try and take control of your own destiny here. Got 1 minute 20. In terms of defending, I agree with Sarah. I think a mediation solution or a mediation system will be a great idea here. There are currently about 30 or 40 matters before the High Court, which has an abbreviated, truncated High Court earthquake list. Litigation is happening. Exemplary and punitive damages are available. I have successfully negotiated claims for compensation from insurers where we've been able to establish unreasonable delay in terms of claims management. So litigation is available out there, but I would say that's the last port of call, not the first. Most of the insurers, in my experience, if you manage the claim well and present your evidence in a coherent, reputable, proper way, are quite prepared to speak with you quite sensibly, in my experience. So I don't think there's a mandate, delay, deny and defend. I think that we, as the residents and the community, need to take control of our own situations and make the resolutions that we need come our way. It's in our hands.
Thanks, Emily.